Welcome, Victor LaGroon. Victor, you're an executive strategist. Your specialty is people. And basically, every company in the world needs your help right
Okay.
now. We've talked a lot. One of the things you believe right now is there's a big disconnect between what businesses want out of people and what people want out of business. Solve
Uh,
that for me in 10 seconds.
10 seconds. All right. No pressure at all. At the end of the day, people want to feel heard, seen, valued, and respected, right? I don't think most people expect to get everything they want. At the same time, I think it's the feeling that they have as they leave an engagement or an interaction that really will determine how that relationship plays out. And as it pertains to employees, right, the people we ask to drive our missions, our outcomes, our profit margins, what they're really looking for is an environment that gives them the feeling that, hey, this is where I belong. They are invested in me the same way I'm invested in the outcomes. And at the end of the day, the folks that I'm going to work hard for will take care of me, whatever that take care of me looks like. And I think it's different for all of our employees today. For some of our younger employees, it may be the quality of life that they're seeking. For some of our older employees, it may be the level of stability that they need in their life at that phase of their existence. The days of employees coming to a company staying for 20, 25, 30 years, they're pretty much over. I think
Right.
and there's a number of factors that's contributed to that. So today when we engage a workforce, the real goal is, what does retention look like for our organization, for that talent? Do we have the ability to grow talent within our organization and develop them, invest in them? Or are we accustomed to a 3 to 5 year turnover margin, right? And I think a lot of companies are in that 3 to 5 year turnover margin space, especially for their younger employees. When we look at the under 30 population, for example, we see them coming into the workforce, finding a job, thinking about what they want career wise, and then moving to their next career step. And that means you're going to get a more transient population, I think, as things develop. I also see that there's a crunch in the market where talent is coming out of the academic institutions looking for their first opportunity, and it's more people seeking those fewer opportunities. So competition for today's talent is a little steeper.
So
And
it's so
that's
steep. Can I speak on behalf of employers for a second?
absolutely.
I feel like, I work mostly in the middle market, lower middle market, the organizations we work with. And I just feel like it doesn't matter. You work with companies of all sizes, but you work with the giant, global multinationals as well. But I just feel like employers have been on the back foot ever since COVID and just,
Yeah.
first it was work from home and then what led to the quiet quitting phase. And well, now, recruiting and retention, there's not enough people. People don't want to work, but maybe they just don't want to work in this environment. What do we need to change? And now we've got AI and the change management that comes with that is just like drinking from a fire hose for most businesses.
It really is. I think we initially grossly underestimated the impact that AI would have on labor. And I
Mhm.
think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg today. We're going to see job elimination because of technology. And we've seen some of this in a number of different markets. A good example would be today when you go into McDonald's, you want to order food, there's a kiosk. And you go to the kiosk and you punch the key and you swipe your card, and someone at the counter calls your name and you pick up your food. That's very different than what it was like 5 years ago. So we're seeing different emergent markets. I think back to self checkout at Target or a grocery store.
Right.
Before I could take my items, check myself out, that eliminated a human being who was doing that work. And we're seeing it now in autonomous cars. So now there's fewer Uber drivers in some markets, right?
Yeah.
So little by little, we're seeing those changes. We're seeing also changes in, we really had an uptick in who was doing cybersecurity, who was designing applications. Now we're seeing what? Applications creating more applications. So that's going to be some workforce reduction in those markets as well. So different markets will kind of respond differently. I think that we see more specialized care, for example, in healthcare. I looked at a robotics procedure at one of my clients' offices and I said, man, That's interesting. They say, yeah, the doctor's remote and he's operating this machine that's providing this surgery. So now we have more surgical opportunities, but that's one less physician in that location.
Hmm.
So how that changes the emerging markets across different industries is going to play out differently. Today, we see it more relevant in some spaces than others, but it's going to be a challenge. And how we respond to those challenges will be important. So I think some of it is that we have to have a very sober conversation with society and say, these markets are emerging. However, some of the other markets are going to be hit differently. And how we get young people to look at career opportunity really is going to be important, because what we don't need is a more frustrated workforce who now has expectations that hiring people aren't going to be able to meet, right? We're not going to be able to guarantee that you're going to have gainful employment in certain industries for the next 20 to 30 years. Different people will have to change how they do work or what work looks like for them.
I,
So we do have some challenges.
I just thinking about my kids entering the workforce, like you and I have had to reinvent ourselves,
Over and over again.
maybe five major reinventions.
Right.
Like like kids or younger people entering the workforce, they might have to reinvent themselves like 20 times, 30 times this year.
I see a future where um, before we were concerned about someone graduating with a master's degree and still working as a barista. We're going to see, I think, two things: more young people becoming entrepreneurs, right? Thinking about what they can create and how that goes into the marketplace. And then we're going to see another group that will have to acquire different skills as they move throughout workforce development. So today they may be doing something in human community contact, for example, right? Providing outreach, engagement, making phone calls. Many of us spent careers on the phone. I remember selling subscriptions to the newspaper as a college student. That's going to be automated. So now that same person who was selling subscriptions,
Wait, what's a newspaper? You're gonna have to back up for me there.
right? Well, I mean, for example, healthcare. Today, someone from the insurance industry is going to give you a call and say there are other options. These might suit your family's needs differently. Tomorrow, it might be an automated option that
Hmm.
reaches out to you and say, hey, select one if, select two if, and so on. So there are already steady changes we see developing. And I think young people today will have to be far more flexible than you and I needed to be. I think we were finding ourselves in different industries and saying, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Let me try my hand at, bartending. Let me try my hand at education. I was a
Hmm.
substitute teacher at one point in time. I also worked in hazardous waste disposal. I was in the military. I went into healthcare, then public policy, right? Then government affairs. So I think we had some level of evolution also. And this generation is suited and tooled for development and evolution. We do have to walk them through what some of those opportunities are going to look like.
Yeah. Tell me, I want to use you selfishly for the people that I work with mostly. So those mid-market healthcare businesses.
Yeah.
Um, Give me some tips on creating an environment. And I'm not talking about like a huge health system. I'm talking about like a smaller organization that maybe just manages the anesthesia, or maybe an organization that's making a technology for the hospital. Like these aren't huge organizations, but they need really talented people, specialist people, and they're hard to recruit, and other people want to poach them. So, any advice?
I think one of the things that I see being more helpful today, and I have a client who is a network of community clinics. So they have about 10 clinics in the community. And one of the things I've advised them on is hire more people who have diverse backgrounds. And the reason for that is that the people who are capable of doing more than two or three things will always have some place within your organization,
Oh, I like that.
right? So even if you may hire someone in accounting who might have an IT background, right? They can shift to another part of your workforce without losing that talent and losing that intellectual equity that your company's benefited from, and still stay in the development phase of how you build them as an employee.
When you
And
think
keep
about change management too, people who've been through different scenarios aren't as scared of change and they're easy to adapt to change. Because you just described the perfect accountant today, somebody who's been in IT and numbers because it's all merged.
it's a great merger, right? And so as you think through healthcare, you may hire a nurse today who could be in another part of your practice, right?
Hmm.
They could provide, nurse management in your dental practice. They could do other things within your organization, whether it's in billing, right? So there's always a place where a leader who's developed in leadership skills can lead in an organization. The problem is when you start throwing people leadership skills or leadership positions out of necessity and not out of development of talent, right? And I think that's where some organizations find themselves in a bit of a pinch, right? It's someone that they hope that they could convert into a leader who hasn't had leadership development. So that is a point of caution that I share with some of my clients.
Do you find that people actually like really know how to express what they want from their job or their career? Or do they just know that they're not seeing it when they're not seeing it? Because like as a business owner, how do I find out
Yeah,
what
yeah.
people want if they're not sure what they want? Or maybe they are and I just haven't asked the question.
Well, what I would advise in that scenario is talk to your people more than you talk to your clients, right? And make sure that, we used to have this thing back in the day called an open door policy. At any point in time, I could go see my leadership and stop them with a challenge, bring a solution, work through how I could make something happen better, or different, right? That moved the needle as far as how we were productive in an organization. That's a challenge today because larger organizations really don't know their people, right? I
Hmm.
know that John shows up every day, works at this desk, does this thing. I don't know any of the mechanisms that makes John's life move. And now because of that, when something affects his life, I'm not sure how to respond as an employer, right? But if when you have a level of investment in your people and it's easier in a smaller organization than it is a larger one, now I can better forecast and say, oh, someone might have a daycare issue that they just can't manage as far as timing. Do I have flexibility within my organization to change their calendar? Right. If it's talent that I want to retain, I need to solve that problem. That's on me as much as it is the employer. Because what I don't want to do is start over every time there's a challenge. Right.
Yeah.
Attrition is never your friend. So, your back door is always going to be a bigger concern than your front door. So organizations that are burning through capital and burning through people, they're never going to have the level of stability to be as profitable as they can be.
Right.
All right. Your competition, on the other hand, some of them have figured this piece of it out. I'm going to always work to keep my people who are talented, hardworking, invested in our outcomes, and I need to mutually be invested in them. Now, I can't be all things to all people, but what I can do is ensure that my people know there's a challenge, come to me and we'll work through it. We'll figure it out together because that allows me to keep that talent in place, to give them the ability to commit themselves to more work, and not more work as in volume, but in quality. Right? That's really where I want to exist with my workforce.
For the Route 3 pointer now, I want to share some information with everyone that you've shared with me. When we first met, one of the things that we worked together on was initiatives um, to encourage organizations to hire veterans. You're a veteran.
Yep.
You taught me, just opened my eyes to some really cool things about veterans that if you don't know it, you're missing the opportunity. So first, I just want to give you a chance. Why are veterans amazing teammates?
I think a big part of it is that you, from the very beginning, when you come into the military, you're surrounded by people who are nothing like you. Typically, they didn't grow up where you grew up. They didn't come from a community like yours. They often don't look like you. So what you start learning is commonality. And in that commonality, finding those common threads, you also get to develop new relationships that are often strong bonds because you're going through that development together, right? It's kind of like if you started out together in a new company, you went to orientation together, you were new in your department together, you start having lunch together. So now there's a commonality to our showing up in this new space together. And we're having these joint experiences and we're developing and we're helping one another be successful. That's the culture you really want to build in your workforce. You couple that with high expectations at a very young age, right? Most of
Hmm.
our service members are coming in at 18, 19, and 20. So, a year ago, they needed permission to stay out past 12 o'clock. Today, we're trusting them with millions of dollars of technology.
And
So
lives.
you have and lives, absolutely. So you have the most tech savvy generation of service members over the last 30 years
Right.
coming out into the workforce and saying, hey, I've worked with different cultures, different communities, different languages. I've galvanized teams around mission. I've driven outcomes since the very beginning of my career in the military. When I come out, I want to exercise those skills. I want to help my organization thrive. I want people to be committed to one another. I want us to build a culture of honesty and integrity and accountability. But all of those things are mutual. So it's different than as opposed to a college student who's coming out of college at 22 or 23, asking them to lead in environments in which they've never led, and
Hmm.
even if it's leading yourself, right? At 22, I remember struggling at the workforce and asking questions and knowing who I could get mentorship from and all the other things that you try to figure out at 22 versus coming out of the military. You're self-driven. You understand what commitment looks like. You have been around the world in some aspect or another. And so
Hmm.
you recognize what it's like to be responsible at a high level at a very early age. And I think that type of workforce, these are the entrepreneurs of the past. These are the legislators of the past. So
Hmm.
these are the folks who built our institutions. I look at marketing firms that are colossals in the industry today, started by veterans in the past. I look at how veterans changed the landscape of Ford Motor industry after World War II, right? Building the infrastructure of our country. And even some of our great educators came from the Vietnam era. Many of them went into education, sought to educate a new generation of folks. So there's always going to be those veterans who've made these huge impacts across our landscape. The biggest issue is having an opportunity,
Yeah.
right? You
That's
give a
what I
veteran,
wanted to talk about too, because this was a real eye-opening thing for me. You told me when I'm interviewing a veteran, they're going to be very different than anyone else I'm interviewing, because very likely they will not sell themselves.
nope,
You got to pull it out of them.
you do.
Tell me the key to interviewing a veteran.
So, one of the things, and I realized this about myself when I first came home. Um, my first job in Chicago was at University of Chicago. I'm sitting in the interview with the head of the cancer center, and she said, tell me some things about what you were able to accomplish. And everything I said was about team because
Hmm.
that's the culture in the military. Right? And she said, well, yeah, but tell me what you did. And I said, well, I led my team in these ways. I was able to help some of my younger service members really develop themselves as professionals. And it took 5 questions to get me to, oh, you just want me to talk about me, right?
Yeah.
It's so counter to our culture because we are in a very team rich environment.
You still
So
haven't gotten over that, by the way.
I,
You're still like the most humble person I know.
you know what? There's some great truth to that, and I think every day I try to be a little better at recognizing that I can speak to the things that I've done individually and still honor the work that I've done with great
Yeah.
people. Right?
That was a compliment, by the way. It was not like
Wasn't
it's
a
cool. It's really cool because when we talk and I hear everything you've done, it just reinforces the humility. I'm like, oh, you worked where? You did what? You're doing what now? It's pretty cool. I have one more question. This is a quiz for you.
sure.
So, um, I looked up celebs and musicians who served in the military, and I want to see if you can guess which branch that they served
Okay.
in.
Oh, that's a good one. That's
Okay. Jimi Hendrix.
Army.
Correct.
Yeah.
Adam Driver.
Marine Corps.
I swear he does not have this in front of him. How do you know? Well, let's go through the rest and see how good. Maybe these are just lucky. Shaggy, not from Scooby-Doo Shaggy. Shaggy, it
Shaggy,
wasn't me.
I believe
Uh,
he was a Marine.
he was a Marine. Morgan
Okay.
Freeman,
Army,
Air Force.
Air Force. I think it was Army Air Corps.
Oh,
What year was it?
I don't know, dude. I asked ChatGPT. Here's my favorite one that I didn't know. B. Arthur.
B. Arthur was a Marine.
She was a Marine.
Yeah, she
Dang,
was a
you are good at this.
she's a tough. I mean, if you think about B. Arthur's personality and how she excelled way back in a time when women really weren't highlighted and elevated and doing their own shows, she had to be a tough lady, right? She
Yeah.
really had to push through and have perseverance. And when you see B. Arthur with all that energy, just think about what she was like at 25, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty amazing.
that is awesome. Three more. Iced tea.
Ice T. That's a tricky one because I'm trying to remember. I want to say,
It was fun to look at this and realize some of these people that
yeah,
you just kind of see him on the
Ice T
screen.
is a good one. Was he in the Air Force?
He was the Army.
Army. I should have known
Okay, two more. Willie Nelson.
that. That one I don't know.
I just
I'm going.
imagine him getting discharged for,
I
for
mean,
well, think
Willie
about Willie
Nelson.
Nelson flies high.
Yes.
So,
Oh, Air Force.
yes. The
I
last one.
mean, Willie Nelson and Jimi Hendrix. It's hard to imagine those free spirits in a conformed uniform with a haircut, standing in formation, doing their thing.
It is,
But
isn't it?
yeah, we produce some good folks.
The last one, the toughest person that's ever lived, Chuck Norris.
Wow. I thought you were going to say Mr. T, who also, by the
Well,
way, was
Mr.
an
T was right. I did see him.
he was an MP
I
in the
should have put
Army.
Mr. T in there.
Chuck Norris. I'm hoping it's Army.
He was Air Force. He was in the military police in the Air Force.
Okay, so he was really.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, I mean, see,
You learned
think
something on this. See?
I did, I
Aren't you
did.
glad?
You got great folks like Morgan Freeman. It's so many people who
Yeah.
served in the military before they went into their great careers in entertainment. I'm honored to be a part of that fraternity, and it's such a vast, diverse group. It's really reflective of who we are and what we've done in different spaces. So, was Drew Carey another
Yeah.
one?
Drew Carey,
So, I mean, there's a ton of folks out there. You look at today
Fred
and be like,
Durst.
Fred Durst, another one, right? Fred Durst. Um, Sinbad the comedian is
Yeah.
another one, right? So it's a really weird kind of fraternal organization of mixed bag of nuts, but we all found a way to fit in.
Yeah. Your point on you're going to be thrown in with people that probably weren't from your town, weren't from your street. Like it's well represented when you look at this list of people.
It is, and I think it's more representative of how society plays out, right? No matter where we start, we kind of end in a very common space. So I'm just really appreciative of one, folks who've been able to exercise their best foot forward when they've had an opportunity, and two, the people who've given us opportunities, to grow and to make mistakes and to fail forward, because I think
Mhm.
that's important as well.
Well, we're recording this right now. It's right around Veterans Day, so it is appropriate to say Happy Veterans Day. But Victor, thanks so much for coming on and sharing some of your knowledge about the workforce. It's so important.
Yeah,
Right now, we're in the middle of a big shift, and people are
we
going to
are.
have to be very nimble on both sides, the businesses and the team members. So thanks for your time.
No, man, and I'm appreciative of what Route 3 does and across markets, right? But more importantly, you guys are great at helping people tell their story. And I think that's a skill set that if I could master any one thing, the ability to tell a great story about myself, about my company, about our product, that's always going to be a winning skill. So kudos to you guys and what you do and how you help your clients. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Victor.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.